Okay, everyone, thank you for joining. It's 1:30, so let's kick off. So once again, we're really happy to have you all here. Many of you probably attended our webinar last week with Case, where we talked about the science behind fastIEP, and a lot of people had asked for sort of a more in-depth walkthrough of fastIEP and what it can do. So we scheduled this session. There'll be interactive questions as well. So feel free to click the Q&A button at any point during the presentation, and we'll keep track of that. And at the end, we'll answer all your questions live, and so you have everything you need. At some point, when you have a chance, you can see there's a URL just above Ned's head to his left, to your right, fastiep.com/case. That's where you can find most of the information that we're presenting today, but except of course for the interactive demo part, which I will kick it over to Ned to get that started.
Thank you, and really thank you everyone for being here. Recognize your time is valuable. And we recognize that this topic is a big one. And we at fastIEP are deeply, deeply passionate about and invested in real-time data logging, real-time progress monitoring, and rapid and easy construction of well-formatted IEP goals. This is kind of the sweet spot. And at a meta level, of course, thereby allowing your district to be even more compliant and at the same time saving teachers time and effort. I think sometimes those two are potentially at odds. And so this is our philosophical bent, and we bring neuroscience and background to this, and we've rendered it in terms of this software called fastIEP. And so that's our background. And I think it's important that we focus on this real-time loop, feedback loop for teachers that ultimately benefits the students, because research over years and years has shown that setting judicious goals and monitoring progress toward them have an enormous effect size in the outcomes for the students. And additionally, because especially the way we gamify this system, making it fun and rewarding and giving feedback, it allows the teachers to flourish more because it reduces burden, reduces the paperwork, although the paperwork gets done because a lot of it gets auto-created by the fastIEP software. This is what teachers told us they needed, and districts, and it's where we are. So we have shown you a brief overview before. I'll show you now just a quick overview of the interface and then the setup process to create a new account. All right, so I will be sharing in a moment. On this screen, we saw the interface briefly before, but I'll do a quick overview and then, as I say, go back and set up an account so you see the whole flow. On the left, I have my students, and I can flip amongst students. And on the right, in this central area, I have the goal tiles. Each goal is a brightly colored, easily clickable, interactive tile. It's essentially a button. And at the core is that ability to log data in a single click. Every goal can be turned into a yes/no question through our rubric, and we'll come back to that. And then when you say yes or no, that data event is instantly logged and turned into an ongoing progress report chart. Every data point enters instantly. So that's an overview. Now let's go back around and start this from scratch. One question that people often ask is, how easy is this for my teachers to set up and to learn? And so might as well just go through that process, and then we're going to go through a few of the key details and then take any questions, which we hope you'll have many questions. So now let's come here. This is a fresh new account. This is the edition of the software focused for teachers directly. So let's make myself a new account here. Just case. Okay, just so I don't forget. You would type in an email address. I'm using a special kind of email address here just because we keep creating so many of these demo accounts as people are interested. But it's that easy, your name and email address, and I join. This is a rapid process, and right away I have a new account. And helpful for your teachers, we have a walkthrough that happens as they go along through the software. So let's get started. And it tells me, oh, I can add a new student. It's that easy. Add a student here. What shall our student's name be? Let's say, all right. And I set an annual review date. And I can pick a color if I want. And I'm done. I have a new student that fast. If your district uses a system, we will integrate with that to pull in student information. I don't need to put in any of this info here right now, but I can. Parents, so we can easily contact, send them reports, and consent for photos and videos that unlock certain features. I could even share this account with a paraprofessional right now, but I'll come back to that. So now I have a new student. That was pretty easy, right? fastIEP. Again, reducing burden for the people on the front lines who need this the most. Okay, so then I want to add a goal. This is really interesting because it's difficult to write compliant IEP goals. We turn it into a rubric that allows every goal to be ultimately a yes/no question. Did the person perform that task at that time, event by event? And we give a lot of categories which can be useful for figuring out what the student needs and just give those little nudges of how best to term things. Let's just pick a language-based goal. So the first part is this goal kernel. This is the part that is the central part of the goal. And after that, you do the performance thresholds and such. So let's say this is expressive language. So we'll speak 3-word utterances and prompted in relevant text. I don't know. And then we set the criteria. So for instance, it could be 4 out of 5 chances, or I might switch over and actually do as a percent, 80% of the time, or 80% with 80% accuracy. This is very common in how goals are written. Let's go back to 4 out of 5 times. And then observation periods. This is, of course, recurringly over time. So then I might do weeks, let's say for 3 out of 4 weeks, or something like tests, observations, and so forth. This covers most goals. And then if I have one of those consecutive goals, maybe I need 3 consecutive weeks. Those are a little more strenuous goals. Let's go back to 3 out of 4 weeks. So you see how most goals can fit into this. If I need an example of what the goal kernel can look like, this helps prompt the teacher. It's a little bit of micro PD along the way, and I can pull in some examples. And then I save it, and now I have that goal. We also give a goal constructor that allows you to put in all your goals all at once, so that that's easier for the teacher All right, so expressive language, here it is. Yes or no? Did Ibrahim speak a 3-word utterance at that time? Yes. Okay, I've logged the data point, and congratulations, I have this now. So those are some of the key steps. You may have noticed just briefly some of these gamification sliders just moved over. Since I only have one goal in this student right now, by logging it, I'm at 100% of my goals logged for today and for this week. So I get that feedback, that feels good. And then this on the goal tile, I'll narrow us in here so it's a little bit easier to see. On the goal tile, so now we see 1 out of 5. My progress so far, performance threshold is 1 out of 5 of these episodes, these events, toward a threshold of 4 out of 5. And if this time I didn't do it correctly, then okay, I'm still at 1 out of 5. Next time Ibrahim does it correctly, and I'm at 2 out of 5. I'm making my way towards the threshold. If I meet threshold by the end of the week, then I get 1 more week added to my progress, 1 observation period. If I meet my threshold there of 3 observation periods, the goal is complete. You see, the computer computes everything for you. You don't need to guesstimate a couple of weeks later whether you were performing at 80%, whether the student was at 80%. The computer does that, and does it in an audit trailed, time-stamped, metadata way. That work is done by the computer, doesn't have to be done by the teacher. And speaking of work not done by the teacher, here I am again, I go over and I see a chart starting to form. Of course, right now, not much data in this student, so let's switch over to Albert Einstein and see again what the data look like when we go along. I'm hoping some questions are forming in the background right now, and can quickly take a look at that, but it's Jim, who just spoke, who is going to be minding the questions and feeding them over.
No questions yet, but we're open for business. Hit the Q&A button.
Exactly. And I think we have a poll question coming up. Is that right?
Yeah, that's correct. Do you want me to launch it now, or?
Yeah, let's launch that now, and then we can come back to this.
Okay.
It's wonderful to see how many of you are out there. We look forward to your response on this poll question. It's interesting. I'll read it out loud. If your district currently has IEP software of some kind, do your teachers nonetheless still use paper or spreadsheets to track the ongoing IEP progress? That's the in-class data collection and progress. So you see the different options there. We look forward to your answers.
The answers are coming in. I'll leave it open a little bit longer. Right now, it's 100% still using paper and spreadsheets. All right. Anyone else want to answer before I close it off? All right. Well, with 60% of precincts reporting, it is a landslide for still using paper.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So
That's
we can move on. And this is something that we see often, and it's fine. Teachers are quite adept at using the binders and using paper-based methods. Nonetheless, we know that it takes a lot of work, and it takes work at the time to record on paper, and then later to pull together the scraps of paper, go through the snow maybe to get the binder, and get ready before writing the report to pull together data into maybe a spreadsheet, or if you had a spreadsheet, to try to make a graph and get that work done. That's not necessarily the work that in which teachers thrive and shine the most, right? These are wonderful human beings on the front lines, in the classrooms, teaching and minding fairly complex situations in a special ed classroom, obviously. Do we want to burden them with all of that paper and spreadsheet-based work? The point of, the first point of fastIEP was to bring a much more rapid feedback loop and tool to make that easier. And also, when I say feedback loop, to give that ongoing progress monitoring. When I'm looking at a screen like this right here, I see this chart. I can't see that if I'm just writing things down on paper. And I'm writing things down for 16 goals each for 19 students on my caseload. How on earth can I get an ongoing snapshot of who's progressing, how far, when? That's very hard. And it takes a lot of work to pull the data together. In this case, it's happening all the time. If I want to get a sense of the ongoing progress and maybe email that to a parent, right here, these are these auto-generated sentences. The sentence embeds the data. It's actually quite hard to write a sentence from scratch that is compliant and expresses the entire goal, right? So non-literal language here, Albert has succeeded in correctly identifying yada, yada, yada. Well, I have the goal in there, I have the thresholds, and I have the current progress of 20% completion, and also how many days left till the annual review date. I copy, and I can add that to a report. This kind of thing is time-saving, and it also keeps reminding like how much work there is left to do. I'll say that over here as well. When I see a field of goals, I have these little red marks there because I haven't logged for a while. I log something and I see it's green. I'm seeing my progress, how much I'm doing. And that reminds me of where to spend my time as a teacher. I have limited time. So if 3 students are doing very well and on most of their goals, 1 student's really lagging, but even those 3 students, there's a couple goals in which they're lagging, I can immediately see in a visual snapshot, because everything's right there, not locked in a binder, where to go. All right, so I could keep talking and I want to hear your questions. We also don't want you to have to take our word for this. We have thousands of teachers using and benefiting from the platform, and obviously all of their students. So Jim, I think you have a testimonial video, and this is nice to be able to hear from people out there in the world using this, not just from me who's invented it. So Jim, do you want to play that? I guess I'll stop sharing.
Sure. I'm trying to click it. There we go. And video. So we thought we'd show you, some real examples of both a teacher and also an administrator, and their experience with using fastIEP. So go to my videos. And so first, we're going to show you a teacher and the experience she had.
My first thought when I saw it is, I need that now. Because I have 33 students, fastIEP is going to help me save about 4 to 5 hours per week. So before fastIEP came along, what I did was the old-fashioned handwrite my notes, treatment notes. It just took me a long time to track and to even show the actual data to parents. Now with fastIEP, it's just a click of a button where I can just show progress, and I can have a visual of a graph, and just I can show that a goal has been met. Would totally recommend this program.
Great. So as you can see, fastIEP really makes the teacher's life a lot easier. We do have another testimonial video from an administrator, if you'd like to show that and see. I would imagine most of our audience here today are administrators, but I know we also have a lot of teachers in the audience as well. So let's hear from both.
When my teachers came to me and they're like, I think we found something. And I'm like, why can't you just do what I'm asking you to do? you know, and I'm actually grateful because they put in the research to find something, you
Yeah.
know, and I was thankful and grateful for it. And so now I'm extremely happy with it.
So there you go.
Wonderful. So switching back here, so many things come up. I'd love to be able to share everything. We won't have time to go through all the different features, but when your questions come in, we'll highlight the ones that are most germane. And one thing here is we were talking about, briefly just mentioned about communicating with parents. So what I've found is that there's a few very vocal parents oftentimes, and sometimes when parents get surprised, they don't know what's coming, they can get defensive at that IEP meeting. And a parent who's out of the loop, surprised, can be kind of a combative parent. But parents who are looped in can be more of a collaborative parent. And then everyone's working together. So it's hard sometimes, though, to keep people updated. I've shown you before with the single sentences that get created that give you the update on a particular goal. And it's easy to just copy that, send that in an email. This whole display here with the data and with any events and annotations and summaries can also be downloaded very easily. I just press this button, Save Print, and I'll get a PDF. That PDF summarizes all the progress up to that point. I get it emailed to me as the teacher, and I get it downloaded directly to that computer. It has these charts and graphs and summaries that are really, really difficult for any individual teacher to come up with and would take a lot of time. But you're seeing this while I'm talking. This is being done. It's halfway through, 14 pages, and then I'll get that PDF. So that's a wonderful communication tool for the parents. And sure, you need to send that home at report card time, but you can do it if that's something your district likes to do, to communicate in that way at any time or when the parent asks. So that's a lot of information you're very easily able to share. I also mentioned something about annotations. So I might want to record something important ongoing basis, like you see at the bottom here, it says Students' Day. It's very easy for me to quickly note that this was a really good day, or something went not so well this day, and that goes into my data log. It's important later to see when I see a deflection of the data points. Oh, okay, well that was a particularly tough day. Maybe it was the every second Friday thing, or it's just before vacation, or there was a fire drill or something disruptive to the classroom. These are things that I can mark. Also, on an event by event basis, I can make annotations. For instance, after this event I've just logged, it says add note, video, or photo. Remember I said earlier that you have to give authorization for each student. And when that student has photo or video authorization, I can add something here. I can take a note. Today was a magical day for Al Einstein, of course. And then I could add a photo. In this case, I'm using the camera for this Zoom session on my computer, but it would add a photo or add a video. What would that be? Well, again, it could be of a specific event, could be of a wonderful bit of success that you want to tell the parent, or something anomalous. The video could be actually of yourself, recording some notes to yourself, or a little video that you want to send home or discuss with a specialist or a supervisor. There are many uses to this, and you have complete and utter freedom to add as many videos as you want. And some teachers really do. And so again, I would just add a video there and be done. And now all of that information goes into that data record. And the data record is again in real time created. Here's that event, non-literal language, performed it, yes. Apparently student bad day, as I recorded at the bottom. And this note is that note. Today was a magical day for Al. And if I had recorded photos and videos, they'd be here. Great. So I'm getting into the weeds, but one good thing is we have some external board members and advisors and people who really are deeply entrenched in the special education world who have helped guide us and have provided point and counterpoint. So we have one, Dr. Kurt Hewlett, on the line, who may know many of you out there and certainly knows the case system very well. Kurt, I'm going to put you on the spot. I know you're a deep thinker about these things. Do you have any observations or thoughts for us?
Oh, I do, and I appreciate that, Dr. Sahin. A couple things hit me. One is I'm looking through these amazing questions, fantastic questions, and a couple things I just wanted to address. So one, as you know, I do a lot of audits of special ed or school districts around the country, and work with a number of different special education directors to address issues and then enhance and improve those issues. And one thing I notice is that the districts that do pencil and paper or teacher-made quizzes and tests and have really kind of an old school approach, those are the districts that tend to end up in due process or with state complaints, and they also tend to lose. And the reason why I think they tend to lose is that, one, again, when these things go forward and we dig deep into them, what we find is that data has not been collected appropriately, and the documentation is not there when challenged on that data. The other piece is this: the children in those districts, sometimes they struggle to get the same level of service that somebody who's using a more complex system, because, and I'll give you an example, I see a lot of data collection. And then when I ask the district, so what decisions did you make based on these 6 pages of weekly reports? And they say, well, what do you mean? And then I ask, well, what is the intent of data collection? And well, of course, it is to track progress and make adjustments to your interventions and approaches and instruction. Well, when it doesn't analyze any of the data, it doesn't give you trend markers, it doesn't tell you when and where things occur, you can't really, it's not actionable data. So we've got to provide software that actually analyzes the data, gives you trend analysis, gives you graphing so you can see when, where, how, and how often these things are happening. The other thing that I find in audits is that the pencil and paper, there's a lot of copy and paste goals as well as poorly written goals. And one of the things that I'm finding is a lot of special ed directors are having to hire alt certified teachers and folks with very little training coming in. So we need systems that will walk them through best practices, encourage best practices, provide, as you call, micro PD, so they can learn on demand when they actually need it. And then the other thing I just wanted to mention is that, there was a question, I think, from Holly, and she was asking about reminders and prompts, which I absolutely love. And if I remember, Dr. Sahin, on the National Case webinar, I remember you referencing that one about being able to send reports to special ed directors about the percentage of folks that are progress monitoring on time, how often are they on track, but also talking about integrating that into your system where teachers can be prompted, hey, you need a progress monitor today, just a reminder, that sort of a thing. And maybe if you get a chance to also talk about some of your roadmap, I think not only what you have is exceptional, but also where you're moving and some of the innovations you're looking at are really innovative and exciting.
Well, thank you for that. Those are wonderful perspectives. And as always, you go deep. And so there's several things there. If I could take a few moments to discuss, you talked about compliance, and compliance, not just for compliance sake, but for the sake of the students. And that's so key. The framers of the IDEA knew that if you set judicious goals and you march towards them incrementally, the students benefit. And they benefit because that's how the brain learns. Don't learn all at once in one giant slurry of information that comes at you. Just inhale an encyclopedia or a behavioral manual once. No, we learn by repeated practice, and we're encouraged to learn when we see our own progress, right? So that's deeply important, and that's built right in to our philosophy and science, and then it renders in fastIEP. It comes even from the visual psychology of the colors to make it easy to remember, to be reminded. And in these, yes, so Holly, if you're asking about reminders, it reminds you how many goals you've logged that day, how many that week. And there's a success and you get gold stars and all the things that we do for our students. Why shouldn't we do them for our teachers? To motivate, to guide, and to call out when there's something still to be done. There's reminders of how much you have logged, of how your students are doing, and great moments of success when there's a completion event that feel good and that are something to mail home, literally. Now, you also were asking about completely an interesting other topic. Well, I'll come back to that. So the teacher utilization is also important. So when you have the district product here, when we've integrated into your district, you will have all your teachers in one control panel as an administrator. So you can see which teachers might need a little more encouragement to utilize the tool and which ones are absolutely utilizing it to its fullest extent. And they also can motivate each other in that way. It's fun, it builds on itself. You asked something about, or you talked about copy and paste. Now, this is a whole interesting topic. On the one hand, we want to make it easy. And one of the hard things to do is to generate that smart formatted goal in the first place. But on the other hand, I take deeply seriously the I in IEP that this has to be individualized. I said that on the webinar as well. So we give goal starters. We give verbiage and guide the teachers with a database of thousands of these goal starters, which we got from NASIT, the National Association of Special Education Teachers. These are tried and true goals, but it's just the starter. So they take the core, they put that into that goal kernel place. They still have to customize it to the present level of that student. And then they have to set the threshold of performance and the observation periods that make it achievable and judiciously challenging for that student. And that's all the more important after the Supreme Court decision, right, Andrew F., that you need to have a goal that's specific to that student, but that is achievable, but not too easy, right? So you should sufficiently challenge that goal, that student. So we have to know the present level and we have to know where they could get to within 1 year. Sorry, it's a lot of different things, but it comes down to that we're designed so that the goal constructor is easy, but compliant and has the teacher do that extra cognitive work, that bit of cognitive work to customize it for the teacher. Does that address some of the things you were discussing? Wonderful. We could switch back. How are we on time? We good?
Doing good. We have 25 minutes left.
Doing well. All right, great. Then let's pop back over here and play around, and hopefully some of the questions that come in we can address. So I think I showed you annotations and some of the reward-based gamification elements. And what else? So tell me some things that are coming in from the audience about features. Jim, I think you're looking at those more closely. And then we can also go into some of the mechanics of how to serve your district.
Yep, most of the questions are coming in on chat. It's pretty active and I'm replying to them. So feel free to move on with your demo. And then when we're finished, we can review all the questions.
Okay, great.
I did have a quick input, Dr. Sahin. There was an interesting one, just caught my eye from Holly Ortega about uploading standards into the system. And I'd like to get your thoughts, because at this time, I don't believe that's a feature that fastIEP has, but I'd like to get your thoughts on it, because my concern would be that a lot of these other software systems, and like a goal book, for example, it's so easy to copy and paste and download generic goals that I often see the same goals over and over and over. Right. My only concern about, because I'm sure it wouldn't be that hard for you to upload standards and integrate it, But if we do that, do we then make it easier for educators to grab generic goals that may not apply? Because the way you have it now, I feel like it walks them through and kind of drives individualization and ensuring that there's a lot of thought that goes into every goal for every child based on their actual baselines.
Yeah, agreed. Thank you. So our goal constructor is, first of all, universally flexible. It can accommodate essentially all IEP goals. I'm being a scientist. I avoid words like all sometimes, but essentially all IEP goals. And it's a flexible rubric. Now, there are standards that are imposed thereupon that each district can adhere to. But as you say, we want to avoid the cookie cutter, the recycling of goals that don't apply. And so we're guiding best practice. Much of what this is about guiding best practice. Separate question I see in that same thread. Now I'm looking at this chat. It's a little harder for me to see on the screen. Can student names be omitted and initials used instead? Absolutely. And sounds like that's important to you. So if I'm editing students over here and I go in here, now I could, of course, just put an initial there. I can even put only initials. And we have this display name, which displays on the screen a different name, but I believe the name goes into the PDFs because you're sending that on. So you can do whatever you want. There's also the student number. You could, if you really wish, do something like student 27 and then have their ID number here, whatever you like. That's up to you. And I'd be curious to hear how much that's important to you and why. I understand about data privacy, but I'd be curious more.
You know, Dr. Sahin, one thing I was just thinking that's interesting is, you can control obviously who sees it based on permissions, and the law requires that essentially any educator can see it as long as they have a reasonable purpose for viewing that data.
Mhm.
But, I was thinking, if you have a teacher who's working in a classroom and she's pulling up goals, she may be worried, or he may be worried, that another child could see that information when it comes up, especially if a teacher has an iPad and is going through the room. So that's actually a really great question.
It is, it's wonderful. And that's why we built in both the ability for you to put whatever name there and keep a display name, as well as the kind of universal identifier, like an ID number that makes sure you won't lose track of whose data go where. And interestingly, the name here, this is where we listen to feedback. So the name here is relatively prominent, makes sense. But we heard some classroom teachers, they do want to have this on an iPad. And if it would be as simple as to not have that name there, it would be a lot easier. And so in a very coming soon release, you'll have a button here that lets you just collapse this zone here. And so the name is hidden unless you want it there. And just those simple little things that help it be practical in the classroom environment. We're always listening to the feedback and do that. Now, related, but a little similar, a little different, classroom's a complex environment. Luckily, sometimes we have help, as the primary special education educator may have a para assigned to some number of people in the class, or as an additional instructor, or assigned one-to-one with a student. So we give the ability for you to have a para involved. Now, a para or an instructional assistant may have different amounts of training, and the primary teacher may want to review or make sure that there isn't, by mistake, any kind of inadvertent deleting of data or something. So we have the permissions set that a para will be able to enter data, but not delete goals or delete students or things like that. And it's assignment directly to the students that are of relevance. So if I go to this menu and I share with the para, then I can just write in the name and an email address, whatever, it is, and then I share, and now that teacher, that instructor will get a request, and if that person accepts it, then now she can enter data but not delete. And that's just for a para. We have that as a special carve out, but also in your district product, there may be others that you want to have interact with the student data. I think there was a question about gen ed teachers. So we actually have the ability, or in the district product, for you to mix and match. I have 11 students on my caseload, and I have 4 more that I have partial responsibility for here. I'll see them all. But now I want to share these 3 students with a gen ed teacher who has them for one goal. Oh, also there's a BCBA who has kind of dominion over many, many students. And oh yeah, these 3 students do speech pull out, and this one has an OT push in. That gets pretty complicated. We make that easy with a visual tiles where you can mix and match and say, this other instructor or specialist has rights to these students, but these other students are with this one. So you can share the data and the responsibility while retaining control in the educator who is the one signing off on the IEP report.
Dr. Sahin, we got a question about which name is displayed. You have student 27. Is that the first and last name, or is that the display name?
Yeah, very detailed question. So let's go over and come back to student 27. In this case, it's first name, last name.
And is that because there is no display name? So if you were to put a display name, would that override it?
Yes, but in it's getting kind of detailed there. So the display name, interestingly, is currently set to be the first name. So now I'll have Albert 27 over here, and this one needs to update. We have different functionalities. I'd be really curious if that person could write back and say what's the best permutation you'd want, because we can give you the functionality of display only on the screen and not in the PDF and so forth.
So Dr. Sahin, if I can add a quick comment, I was reading here from Robin. She was referencing a chapter 408 document, which I'm not sure, but that actually sounds like New York. And basically it's a requirement that the teachers have to indicate that who's basically viewed the IEP documents. And you know, what I really like about this potential idea is it would probably be very easy, you know, one, to front load the teachers who are on the child's, you know, the teachers for the child, and then have a way that basically the teachers can go in and essentially DocuSign like you would anything else, that they have accessed the document. And what to me would be really meaningful, like with BIPs and things of that nature, is if with that timestamp, it says each and every time they access it. So if a teacher is only accessing goals, you know, once every 6 months, that's going to be a prompt to the special ed director to talk about more frequent review of goals and interaction with the goals. I also think it's a great opportunity. Sometimes it's hard to get teacher feedback forms for the IEPs, and this might be a great way to integrate teacher feedback forms into a system that's actually capturing this data and documenting that they've accessed the documents.
We have all the data, we can generate custom reports for you. So let me explain that. Everything that happens generates a log event with metadata. So when I click this tile, the first thing that happens, of course, is that there's this yes, no question. That's part of the data record, but there's also all the metadata. I was the one logged in. This is the specific time in my time zone, and it relates to that student. And I have that student day maybe assigned here. All of those metadata are stamped into the log. So we know who did what for whom when. We currently display what we believe is a useful amount of the data for the teacher and then for the supervisor, but everything is kept securely in a compatible database compatible with all the regulations. So if you want a custom report about that, or if there's there's some kind of process going on and you need to go get an audit trailed set of information, it's all there. When did the para log in? When did the OT log in and record what, and who saw what when? So the data are there. Whatever is needed, if you want to elaborate, we can make that available.
So Dr. Sahin, to follow up on that, so one of the most important elements legally, of course, is that those progress reports go home as often as the report cards go home for all students.
Yep.
And so what if I wanted a custom report that would tell me, each and every one of my teachers, how many of their students' progress reports were sent home, what date they were sent home, and also if I wanted to know how often they progress monitored, that's something you could actually generate to send to an administrator, so they would have documentation of the progress reports going home, as well as the schedule of progress monitoring and ensuring that it's being done on the schedule that's indicated in the IEP.
Absolutely. That's all there.
Wow.
I mean, the charting is right there in terms of how frequently data are being logged. And then when it comes to report card time, that's what's here in this chart. So for instance, the annual review dates are the ones in pink here, right? But now if I go back up to this account, which is a new account that I just made in front of you, as you know, so some of the data have not been set, some of the features. So here's where I put in where the report cards or progress reports are due. So let's put one at the end of May, and then maybe school's out around then. And then I have a September one, let's say, and I can put in, or let's go backward in time. I could put in these dates, and those dates then become part of my chart. So when I look at all the students, I see that these are the reporting dates. Okay, I put them in funny, but those blue lines are the dates. I will be reminded ahead of those dates that it's time to file a report. I'll be reminded a little more urgently if I forgot to. But just in case I did forget to, it automatically creates a PDF and stores it in the archive. So if you forgot to create one on the date of a report being due, it's there for you and it emails itself to you. So we try to make it easy and we try to remind.
One of the longstanding issues we've had, Dr. Sahin, is, and you've discussed this about making the process quicker, easier, and more efficient for teachers. And one of the longstanding issues, of course, is that special education teachers not only have to teach, but then they have to do, a full load of paperwork for every child they have on their caseload. And it just becomes incredibly overwhelming. And it sounds like your technology has the capacity to take care of a lot of the heavy lifting that teachers have to do. And I'll give you an example. When my special educators had to send progress reports, of course, they had to manually collect all the data, which was arduous. Then they would have to make copies of all the progress reports. Then they would literally have to sit down, fold all the reports, mail them. We would have to pay for the postage. And then we didn't even have any documentation that had arrived. So I think of the amount of time they had to spend doing that. And of course, we had no awareness of whether or not the actual reports were progress monitored as they should be. And quite often the teachers would have P for progressing versus a percentage. And of course, your system can do all of that. So that it sounds like you can really cut down on a lot of hours of work.
Absolutely. It can shave off 100 hours in a year from an average special educator's time. I mean, that's amazing. That's time they can spend with their own children. And it's also addresses the issue of teacher shortage, teacher burnout, and attrition, and so forth. I take those things very seriously. If we can unburden the wonderful humans who are willing to be out there with our kiddos, they'll stay in the profession more. The rates of teachers who are quitting or just biding their time to retirement are unbelievable. I've never seen rates like this. And it's really scary. And it's scary because of more than just the burden on the district to hire another teacher. I think I said this on the webinar. That teacher leaving the classroom is another adult abandoning all those students. It's a big deal. And as a company focused on mental health, and we even have training courses and PD sessions on the trauma-informed classroom. Well, we sure don't want the classroom to be the source of trauma. So the best we can do by the teachers is also the best we can do by the students. And in addition, we know that judicious goal setting and progress monitoring benefits the students.
So Dr. Sahin, one of the things I recall hearing you in the past talk about is the importance of multiple data points, triangulation, and multiple perspectives in the research process.
Mhm.
And so as you're talking about all this, I got to wonder if this is a part of what you would envision. So with your ability to put in notes and capture qualitative information, we often think of the one special ed case manager being responsible for the documentation of goals. But let's take behavior, for example, or reading. Both of those happen all day in every class, and multiple teachers have to observe that to really get a good sense of when things are happening, where they're strong, where they're weak, and what the antecedents are to those behaviors. And with this approach, did you envision multiple educators collaborating, putting notes in, and providing data from multiple sources?
Yeah, and may have just zipped past, but a moment ago I was mentioning that, in fact, with the district product, you can assign students to your special ed teacher, gen ed teacher, and then also speech, OT, PT, etc. So many different specialists and other teachers and paras or IAs can have certain levels of responsibility. You can set how much permission each has. So yeah, each one can be adding annotations, funneling in information that only that person observes, right? So when the person who's the signatory files that report, he or they has access to all of those data. Let's see. So Kurt, also, I think there's some more in the chat and the text-based thread here. Want to make sure we
I
get.
did notice we had a question about the kinds of funds that could be used if a school or a district wanted to implement this kind of software, and obviously ESSER would be up for grabs, as well as IDEA funding, but what if they'd like to use like PD budget or Title II funding? Is that possible?
Oh, absolutely. So all of those apply. People on this call probably know better than I, but absolutely. So ESSER funds apply, Title 1, 2, 3, and 4, but you mentioned 2, absolutely, and IDEA Part B. And we bundle PD. We want to make sure that your district, your teachers are excited about this. And there's not just one more thing. This is actually a thing that relieves burden, but they still need a little bit of training. It's fast, but they need some. So we have PD built in. And if you have more of a PD capability right now, given your current budget, then we can really categorize this under PD, because ultimately we're teaching how to write SMART goals and how to be compliant. So that first year, the software can be folded into the PD. So there are multiple ways. But what we really want most is to serve your district and your students and teachers.
So quick question on that, Dr. Sahin. And maybe it's an observation, and I'm just not familiar with your pricing approach and structure, but a lot of the districts I'm working with, they have essentially lump sums of ESSER 1, ESSER 2 funds, some title funds, and they have more this year and the year prior than what they're used to. And my question would be, they don't know if they're going to have the funds next year and the year following. If they want to do a multi-year purchase it this year, but for the next 3 years to 5 years, because again, that's what I'm seeing a lot of districts do. Can they do that with your system, or can you only purchase 1 year at a time?
Absolutely, thanks. Yeah, I'm the inventor and and the scientist here. Usually there would be a different team of ours addressing the business side, but I'll just easily step in that absolutely you can purchase for multiple years. And in fact, I know the team that deals with the pricing, it's advantageous. So if you have a 3-year or a 5-year contract, you save quite a considerable amount. And so we make that very advantageous. And as you say, that's useful for people who have the money now and don't know if they're going to get it. And additionally, of course, it matters the size of your district. We want to work within what resources you have, and with a larger number of students, we have discounts and a much better pricing scheme. Again, I don't like to talk about the pricing side, more the benefit, but yeah, absolutely, it's beneficial. The larger districts and the longer the contract.
Well, and just, oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just saying, if anyone has specific questions about pricing, feel free to email me afterwards. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Yeah.
And that's what I was going to ask about. I mean, the reality, guys, is that, schools work within budgets and they have constraints. It's just a reality they have to contend with and deal with. And so one, I guess, the question is, so they would contact you, Jim, and is your email easily accessible or in the chat if they want to?
Yeah, I put it in before. I'll put it back again just to make sure. And you can also see above my shoulder here.
And, oh, very cool. And then again, let's say again, educators love to try stuff out. If they want to do a pilot trial, they want to get some kids progress monitoring now before school ends, or during summer for extended school year. How do they do that? Do they contact you as well, Jim?
Yeah, absolutely. Yep, I'm the one to talk to.
Yeah,
okay.
We can certainly put something in place for ESY, and the fall is coming very soon. We know that, and it's a great time in the summer to do some of those PD days, get teachers onto a tool that will save them time. I think that will help with that teacher retention and morale and job satisfaction. And so it's a great time to do it. Start fresh. And I think there was some questions about pulling in data, and I think this kind of question we get often. So if there's a system that you use and you want to know if we can integrate, essentially that's part of the startup plan. So when the district joins the fastIEP family, then we have a team, we know what to do to get you onboarded and get your teachers running. And just one of the parts is to integrate with whatever system you have so they can pull in the student names and basic data. Wonderful. A lot of questions active. Thank you, everyone.
And Dr. Sahin, I'm just a very practical guy. I spent too many years in the schools, I think. The other piece is I just think if you have questions specific to your district, your school, whatever it may be, just reach out to Jim as a good starting point. And whatever your questions are, whatever your needs are, clearly reading some of these questions from Robin, Holly, and the others, your needs are very unique based on where you live, your state, your district size. So again, just reach out to Jim, and I'm sure he can help you out in any way, shape, or capacity.
I'd love to. We are 1 minute out. Any last words, Kurt or Ned?
Thank you, everyone, for your time, and we're here to serve you. And this is a great time. We've been getting a lot of interest, so it would be really great for each of you who is potentially interested right now to schedule with us so we can make sure we implement in time for your fall. I'm super interested, again, as a mental health expert, in doing the best, starting right in the fall. There's so much as we come out of the essentially protracted PTSD of the pandemic. This is a super important year. It's a great time to collect data and watch people progress.
And Dr. Sahin, if I can just mention real quick, I do want to thank you as an objective kind of third party, having been an advocate for a very long time in this field, and I can individually be pretty tough on companies who develop softwares, because a lot of times they don't connect. And I just want to thank you as a researcher in neuroscience for applying it to special education, because I know there are probably a lot of areas you could apply it. But this has been needed for a long time. You know, you referenced Andrew F. We look at federal and state regs. Everything is about progress and growth. And we also have this enormous attrition of special ed teachers. We've got to do something about making their lives easier. And I really believe software like this can make an enormous difference. But it takes people like you and academics who are willing to direct their energies into special education. And I'm truly grateful. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. It's a pleasure.
Thank you all for joining. You have the email address, you have the website. Please definitely feel free to reach out if you have any questions, anything at all. We'd love to talk to you. Have a great day.
Have a great day. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for your service.
Bye.